One of the most commonly used widgets within the software is the image widget. So we're going to come to image, drag it onto the page, and from here we can either choose to upload our own image, use a theme image, which is related to whatever theme we have currently selected, come to stock images, which are going to be related to the decoration industry and all the different images that could be used within it, or I can come to search the web. If I come to search the web, I could search something like the beach, and through Unsplash and Flickr, I can have hundreds or potentially thousands of images that'll come up. In our case, we're going to just select this second image, and it'll be added to the widget. From here, I can choose how big I want the image to be, whether it be tiny to its original size. I could add a link for the image. That way, when the customer selects it, it actually sends them to whatever page I want it to, whether it's on our website or off of it. If I come to design, I could add effects like making it black and white, changing its opacity, brightness, and so forth. I can also do the exact same effects for if it's a hover. So if this was actually used as a link, maybe we want to make it black and white when it's hovered over, or change its opacity and so forth. Image title display is all about displaying text over the image itself. So we can either have it display by default on the image or when the customer rolls over it. So if I do show on image on rollover, I could change this text, change this to image title text, and we'll change this to subtitle text. And if we click OK and hover over it, you can see what it'll be displayed. And again, if I come back to design, go on the paintbrush, I can change all the different settings about that text that's being displayed. When it comes to this image, I can also choose, instead of making it inline, we could use this card or overlay effect. We also have the background, layout, and responsive and advanced properties, just like pretty much every other widget. Now, what is unique to the image widget itself is images, a lot of the times there's some type of background. This image widget is more or less to be mixed with other widgets within a column or row. So if we're going to have text and other things around this, it makes sense to use the image widget. But if we're trying to use it as more or less as a background, we may not want to actually use the image widget. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. So right now, this image widget, I cannot come into widgets and then button and drop a button onto the image. It's just not possible. It has to be above or below it. And it makes sense. That's just, we can't stack widgets on top of one another. What we can do instead is we can come into the column settings, or we can come into an individual row settings. So let's actually make this row just one. And I could have kept it at 2. And there's 2 ways I could go about this. I could come into column settings, and I could come into background, and instead of using an image or a color, I could upload an image, and that is for the column settings. But then we also have the row settings, and it's kind of weird that we have both within a one column situation, but it still makes sense. So I'm going to come into row settings, background properties, background, and I'm going to upload an image, come back here, and we'll choose the beach. Now, we have different settings here as far as, again, I can choose how big I want it to be, image and hover effects, but I can also choose the way I want it to display. So do I want it to cover the full width? Do I want it to be in its original size? Do I want to contain it? And so forth. So right now it's tiling because it's trying to be essentially stretched. So there's all different types of effects that we can do. And then again, what part of the image do we even want to display? And if I come into the actual column, I'll make it bigger, and now I can really start displaying the full image itself. Within the row settings, I could come into layout and then change the actual width by, give it some padding, 10% on the left and right side will start affecting the way the image looks. Also, within this image, realize that we have the ability to now put other widgets over it. And we also have the ability to stretch it the full page. So we have full page bleed and we have content full page bleed. So the background is this image and you can see it went the full width naturally. And then the content itself is if we want to have the text or other widgets do the same thing, we can. So now we have that full page. Now, just so you know, I can do the same thing up here as long as, so we'll make this, you know, as wide as we possibly can, or come back into the image settings, come back. So we have our layout. We don't have that full stretch capability. That full stretch capability is within the row settings. So we'll come to this row settings, layout, stretch, and we'll do, this is content. So if I hit background, nothing happens. If I hit content, then it will have the potential to get bigger. But if you see, we don't have the full page capability. And the reason is by default in a lot of the themes, so we can change that by coming into page options and then page content margin and make it none instead of theme default. And you'll now see that we can start actually going the full width like we want to be. Just like that. And again, the big reason why you would want to use the background image instead of the image widget itself is because now I can come into widgets and I can add any widget. Most of the time it's kind of like a button, and I could put it over the image, but I can't stack one on top of the other. Hopefully this video is helpful and all makes sense. Thanks for watching.